This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, good day, good afternoon. And some places in the world, it's early in the morning. A very good morning. Welcome to Storytellers Cafe, friends, the number one storytelling podcast on Bharat FM. As you all know, Bharat FM is a Cincinnati based radio station that was set up just at the start of the pandemic. And Storytellers Cafe completes 2 years this June. So, this month long podcast is our anniversary special. Thank you to each and every one of you who make it possible to come back very sincerely to listen, learn, and enjoy. Thank you for choosing to listen to Storytellers Cafe. As you all know, friends, I try to bring in new storytellers, undiscovered one by our storytelling tribe in India. People who are doing so much in their lives through their varied experience, life skills, and the work and the whatever they have achieved in life. So today my guest is one such achiever. And I thank Aarti Jain of Doha, Qatar for suggesting her namesake, Aarti Punjabi, who happens to be my guest tonight. But before then, let me tell you, friends, I'm very proud to say that Storytellers Cafe has had guests from across the world, right from Australia, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Doha, Qatar, United Kingdom, Dubai, and the United States, and of course, from across India. But we will also be traveling to Europe, Canada, as well as Switzerland. Why I mention Switzerland? Because it's special. I know it's in Europe. So sit back and enjoy listening to our guest tonight who needs an introduction. This is our anniversary special, and Dr. Aarti Punjabi is our guest tonight. Aarti is a facilitator and trainer for communications. Aarti helps individuals and brands to hone their communication skills by structuring their thoughts and articulating them to accomplish their desired goals. A faculty and leading a faculty at leading business schools in Mumbai. She also works for BIRD, BIRD, a project aimed at developing reading skills for 1 billion people in India. We will talk at length about this project. Aarti is a passionate storyteller, a writer, and a podcaster who believes in the magical and the healing power of stories. I couldn't agree with her more. So, friends, without further ado, let me bring Aarti Punjabi onto our studios tonight.
थैंक यू उषा. मेरी माँ की अलमारी. मेरी माँ की गोदरेज की अलमारी ना मुझे बहुत भाती थी. समझ लीजिए अलमारी नहीं, मेरे लिए तो भानुमति का पिटारा था. बड़ी सी अलमारी थी उनकी, जिसका हैंडल ना कुछ अटक अटक कर खुलता और जोर से खींचने पर थोड़ा चिरमिराता था. लेकिन जैसे ही कबर्ड खुलता तो उसमें से भीनी भीनी परफ्यूम की महक आती थी. सामने कबर्ड में रंग बिरंगी साड़ियां हैंगर पर बहुत ही नीटली टंगी रहती. उसके नीचे शेल्फ पर कई रंगीन पेटीकोट और करीने से तह किए हुए उनके ब्लाउजेस रहते थे। उसके नीचे कुछ शेल्फ पर कुछ पुरानी गठरियां रहती, स्वेटर, और हाँ, एक गोल मेटल का बिस्किट का डब्बा भी था, जिसमें बिस्किट नहीं थे लेकिन तमाम ऊल जलूल सामान, जैसे बिंदी के पुराने पैकेट, बॉबी पिन, कुछ एक आध जंक लगे हुए जूड़े के कांटे भी हुआ करते थे, बिंदी को चिपकाने वाली ग्लू होती थी, सूखी गोंद की डिब्बी, कुछ पुरानी खराब घड़ियां, कहीं जंक लगी हुई चाबियां, पता नहीं क्या क्या बटोर कर उस डब्बे में मेरी माँ रखती। लेकिन मुझे वो डब्बा बहुत पसंद था, मेरे लिए तो वो खेलने का सामान हुआ करता था। और जब भी मम्मी अपना कबर्ड खोलती तो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता। मम्मी के कबर्ड में ना एक पीकॉक ब्लू रंग की साड़ी थी, वो मुझे बड़ी अच्छी लगती थी। उस पर बड़े बड़े, उसका जो बॉर्डर था ना, उस पर बड़े बड़े रुपहले रंग के जो हैं फूल बने हुए थे और बड़े बड़े बूटे भी थे। वो मुझे देखकर इतनी अच्छी लगती साड़ी, मुझे लगता मैं मन ही मन उसे पहन लूं, ओढ़ लूं और कितनी सुंदर लगूंगी, बस ये सोच कर मैं बहुत खुश हो जाती। एक और साड़ी थी मम्मी के कबर्ड में, गहरे पिंक कलर की, इतनी सुंदर, जब मेरी माँ उसे पहनती, किसी भी शादी ब्याह में जाती और एक बड़ा सा हीरो का हार आगे पहनती। वो तो कई बरसों के बाद पता चला कि हीरो का नहीं, पुखराज का हार था। खैर, बड़ा सा बुफा बनाती, हाई एकदम बंद बनाती, और फिर उसके बाद बिंदी, गोल बिंदी लगाती, गहरी लिपस्टिक लगाती। किसी फिल्म स्टार से कम नहीं लगती थी मेरी माँ। मम्मी के जो पेटीकोट रहते थे ना शेल्फ पर, सारे के सारे एकदम मखमली और मुलायम, क्योंकि सैटिन के हुआ करते थे। और ब्लाउजेस, अजी ब्लाउजेस के तो क्या ही कहने, सारे के सारे स्लीवलेस ब्लाउजेस। तब बड़ा रेज हुआ करता था ना ऐसे ब्लाउजेस का। मुझे तो याद नहीं पड़ता कि मेरे बचपन में मेरी माँ ने कोई भी स्लीव्स वाला ब्लाउज पहना हो। ज्यादा से ज्यादा मेगिया स्लीव्स पहन लेती थी बस। ब्लाउजेस भी ऐसे स्टाइलिश हुआ करते थे कि पूछिए मत। किसी में बड़ी सी स्टाइलिश नॉट बनी हुई, किसी में पीछे एक बड़ा सा बो बना हुआ, कहीं बहुत गहरा सा वी नेक। ऐसे स्टेटमेंट ब्लाउजेस होते थे ना मेरी माँ के कि क्या कहूँ आपको। उसके साथ उनके पास बहुत रंगीन और खूबसूरत मुलायम रुमाल हुआ करते थे, रंग बिरंगी साड़ियों के साथ मैचिंग रंगीन रुमाल, जिन पर बहुत सुंदर फूल कढ़े रहते थे। इतना खूबसूरत कबर्ड था कि पूछिए मत। लेकिन फिर एक दिन ऐसा आया कि इस कबर्ड की पूरी काया ही पलट गई। जो कबर्ड इंद्रधनुषी रंगों से हर समय खिला खिला सा रहता था, वह एक दिन एकदम बेजान हो गया। सफेद रंग ने मानिए सारे कम अपने रंगों को अपने अंदर समेट लिया। अब मुझे इस कबर्ड से बहुत चिढ़ हो गई। नीरस, बेजान, सूती साड़ियों से भरा हुआ ये कबर्ड मुझे बिल्कुल न भाता था। पेटीकोट भी अब सूख कर खुरदुरे, माड़ लगे हुए सख्त हो गए। ब्लाउजेस भी सूखे, और अब तो ब्लाउजेस की आस्तीनें भी बहुत लंबी हो गईं। और वो जो रंगीन साड़ियाँ थी और जो ब्लाउजेस थे और पेटीकोट, वो जाने कहाँ गायब हो गए। पुखराज का वो हार जो मेरी माँ पहनती थी, वो किसी डब्बे में बंद करके तिजोरी के किसी गहरे कोने में धकेल दिया गया। जो रुमाल थे वो भी पता नहीं कहाँ चले गए। अब तो सिर्फ सफेद, सूखे, सख्त कॉटन के रुमाल थे, जिनकी एजिंग सफेद रंग से की हुई होती थी। अब जब माँ का कबर्ड खुलता तो उसमें से परफ्यूम की भीनी महक नहीं आती। हाँ, पॉन्ड्स टैल्कम पाउडर की हल्की हल्की महक जरूर आती थी। पर जो ऊपर उनकी शेल्फ पर यूडोकलोन की शीशी थी ना, वो भी सूख गई। उसकी महक एकदम फीकी पड़ गई थी। लिपस्टिक, नेल पॉलिश, बिंदी के पैकेट जो वहाँ रहते थे, सब के सब इस सफेदी की लहर में कहीं बह गए। अब मुझे कबर्ड बिल्कुल भी अच्छा न लगता और न मुझे इससे कुछ लगाव रहा। वक्त गुजरता गया और सफेद साड़ियों ने तो जैसे अपना डेरा यहीं पर जमा लिया। कुछ सालों के बाद हालांकि थोड़ा सा तो कुछ बदला। जॉर्जेट और नायलॉन की साड़ियां आने लगी, लेकिन थी वो भी बिल्कुल सफेद। फिर उसके बाद उन दिनों मुझे ऐसा लगता कि शायद जॉर्जेट की साड़ियां हैं तो माँ शायद कुछ हल्का महसूस कर रही है, लेकिन कह नहीं सकती। फिर एक दफे टसर सिल्क की साड़ी आई दिवाली पर। रंग तो सफेद था साड़ी का, और साड़ी थी भी बहुत स्टिफ, लेकिन फिर भी हाथ लगाने पर कुछ तो मुलायम थी। थोड़ी सॉफ्टनेस तो महसूस होने लगी। फिर एक आध साल बाद मेरी बुआ आई और धीरे से रंगों का आगमन शुरू हुआ। बुआ ने माँ के लिए एक साड़ी ले आई थी। बुआ बड़े लंबे अरसे के बाद एक सफ़ेद साड़ी जिस पर हल्के ग्रे रंग की धारियां थीं। धारियां तो थीं, लेकिन रंग भी था, चाहे हल्का ही था। फिर कुछ समय के बाद फूल भी खिले। इस बार सफेद साड़ी पर छोटे छोटे काले फूलों का डिजाइन था। फूल काले तो जरूर थे, लेकिन थे तो फूल ही ना। बस उसके बाद धीरे धीरे सफेद रंग फेड होने लगा और रंगों की धीमे धीमे वापसी शुरू हो गई। अब रंग हल्के थे और साड़ियां अब कॉटन से आगे बढ़कर ऑर्गेंडी की, और फिर उसके बाद जॉर्जेट, फिर नायलॉन और सिल्क की होती गई। अब अलमारी इतनी नीरस नहीं थी। वैसे गहरे रंगों को और गुलाबी रंग को वापस आने में तो बहुत साल लग गए, लेकिन गनीमत है कि कम से कम लौट तो आए वो रंग। बस नहीं आ पाए तो वो स्लीवलेस ब्लाउज, वो बो वाले ब्लाउजेस, वो गहरी लिपस्टिक। हाँ, परफ्यूम ज़रूर वापस आ गई, और टैल्कम पाउडर तो था ही। और हाँ, कढ़ाई किए हुए रुमाल भी अब वापस आ गए हैं। और क्या कहूँ, वो जो हार है ना, वो अब भी बक्स में बंद है। और जब मैं कभी भी मम्मी के कबर्ड में झांकती हूँ तो पीकॉक ब्लू साड़ी और वो गहरी पिंक साड़ी अभी भी उनकी झलक मुझे दिख ही जाती है। मलमल के कपड़े में लपेट कर, सहेज कर, बहुत ही सफाई से मेरी माँ ने उसको पीछे की शेल्फ पे रखा हुआ है। पुरानी यादों को और वक्त को मानो बांध कर, सजो कर, अब भी मेरी माँ ने किसी कोने में सहेज के रखा हुआ है। आप बताइए, आपकी माँ की अलमारी कैसी है? थैंक यू, धन्यवाद। ये थी मेरी माँ की अलमारी।
Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome to Storytellers Cafe, Dr. Aarti Punjabi. What a
थैंक यू।
pleasure and what a
थैंक यू।
story. Took me back into the past as the misty, waves of memories just kind of passed by. I too remembered my Maki Almira. Godrej ki Almira thi. And, what a textural feeling to the story. You beautifully texturized the saris, the organdy, the organza, nylon. Oh, fabulous.
थैंक
Whiff,
यू।
yes, really, whiff of memory. Thank you for that. Thank you, Aarti. What a
थैंक
lovely
यू उषा। थैंक यू फॉर हैविंग मी एट स्टोरी टेलर्स कैफे। थैंक यू सो मच। थैंक
My
यू।
pleasure, my pleasure. And it's such a pleasure to listen to stories in our own native tongue, especially Hindi. So, Aarti, my question to all my guests is, what is a doctor who's obviously a PhD in management, who is visiting faculty in some of the top business schools in Mumbai? Of course, you're a communications expert, so it's no, basically, I mean, it shouldn't be difficult for you to tell stories. But again, I ask you, how did you get into storytelling?
Well, that's a very easy question to answer and a very difficult one to answer at the same time, because I think we all live stories, right? And we all have stories within us. And we all tell stories. I think all human beings are born storytellers, right from childhood. We tell stories, we just don't realize that we are telling them. And but if you ask me that how did I really get into this whole phase of coming and sharing my stories, I think I would have the pandemic to thank that for, because that was the time when we all, there was a pause. There was a time when everything slowed down and we all had to reassess. And that is the time when I decided that, all right, I must give some time to things which I enjoy. Not that it was a very deliberate decision, it just kind of happened. I have been writing in the past. I have been sharing some of my stories, but I was never really confident about my work. And I did not really think that I'm a writer or a storyteller. I just thought, all right, I like to write. I'll write. I will meet friends. Just share it with them. So there is still a writing group in Mumbai called Caferati. So I would go for their meetings and sometimes share my stories. What was a little thing for me is that most writers in Mumbai, the city that I come from, they write in English, and I would write a lot more in Hindi. So I would feel that, I used to feel that maybe not able to connect, but the pandemic taught me otherwise. And there was a lot of time during the pandemic. Yes, I mean, it's there is always that much time only. Time is very relative, right? It's just because we had taken a pause. I started blogging, and I started writing very regularly. I participated in one of the A to Z challenges, and that is where I happened to meet Aarti Jain, my friend. And then I started writing very regularly. Every single day, I would write a story. Not all of them were great stories. Obviously, if you're going to be writing every day, you can't produce fabulous work unless you are a fabulous writer. That is what I think. So some of them were quite okay. Some of them had a scope. So I worked on that. And when I shared them, on A to Z, and I shared them on my blog, and I shared them on Insta. I received a lot of positive feedback, and that's what got me going. And that's how I started this whole journey of discovering myself and, finding that, yes, there is a writer in me. Uh, I don't know how brilliant, but there is a writer. And if I push myself, I can tell stories and I enjoy it a lot. I really like telling stories. I like listening to stories. I've always enjoyed it, but I did not know that I can. I think it happened only during the pandemic. So yes, like a lot of artists and creators, I think I have the pandemic to thank uh, for discovering that there is this little aspect that I can work on, and it brings me great joy. So that's how I started the whole thing.
What a wonderful way to discover your hidden talents, latent talents during the pandemic. So I would say pandemic was somewhere which taught us humans to take a pause, reflect, and look into ourselves, and then, kind of proceed cautiously. Um, Thank you. I really thank the pandemic for giving us Dr. Aarti Punjabi, the storyteller, because I enjoyed the story of Maki Almira. Very, very, absolutely resonated.
Thank
So,
you. It's a very, very personal story. And again, I wrote it during the pandemic. And see, this incident that I've written about happened many, many years ago. And I did not even know that it bothered me as much. But obviously, it did, right, as a child. And one day I was just sitting by myself, sitting in front of my computer. By the way, I'm very bad at writing on computer, but because for the A to Z challenge, everything had to be uploaded on your blog. So I started writing there, and I just could not type very fast because the emotions were so, like, it was so overwhelming. So I kept the computer aside and I actually sat and wrote it down. And you can see I wrote it down all in longhand like that. And I wrote it completely. And then I realized that it had been inside me for so long, and it was just, the time was just right. I think because I had slowed down, it just came out. But it's a very, very personal story. And I think, yes, a lot of us, at least from that generation, have seen how difficult it can be um, for women when they lose their husbands. Yes, so I just picked up on that part, and it's a very personal story to me. I did not want to read it out to my mother because I thought it would bring very painful memories. But when I did read it out to her, she was very happy. And I don't know. I mean, how can someone be so happy? But I think that's how mothers are, right? They're always happy about things that you do. And even if you're talking about a very painful part of their lives, they still look at you with a lot of love. So, yes, thank you. Thank you for saying that it resonates.
Thank you, Aarti, because it's nostalgic, and your mother enjoyed it because of the nostalgia and the way you expressed yourself. And when somebody expresses the emotions, it's kind of very, very heartening, I would say, and would bring happiness actually to me if my daughter were to write about, something my niece said the other day, that I liked what your mother Marcy did. She quit her job just to raise her children. So my niece is in California, and she's taken a sabbatical. And when she told my daughter that I liked what your mother did. So it's kind of, it's not a question of validation. It just feels good.
It
It
feels good. Yes,
feels
yes.
that
That's what,
children
no,
are, yes, observe. And thank you for sharing such an intimate piece of your life. Thank you. Thank you for that. Aarti Punjabi, my friends, is from Bombay. She is from Bandra, which is one of the happening suburbs in Mumbai city. And Aarti, moving on, you are, I know, visiting faculty at two of the, you mentioned the top business schools, SP Jain and Narsi Monji, and you teach communication. So, could
yes.
you tell us in brief about your work and this, since you're teaching communication, because that's such an important skill. Basically, storytelling is communicating. So, could you just talk to us about that?
Well, yes, I teach in a couple of business schools. I teach the postgraduate program, that is the MBA, and I do communications as a subject. As you rightly said, if we are unable to express ourselves, if you are unable to articulate what your thoughts are, you cannot achieve what you have set out for. Whatever your goals are, they will it's very difficult to achieve if you cannot articulate your thoughts, and that is where communications comes. But a lot of people associate communication only with very good speaking or very good writing skills. What a lot of us miss out on is that communication is also about reading and listening. More than anything, listening, the art of listening, I think I would rate it as number one skill that one needs to develop if they want to be good with communications. Because if you listen with empathy, if you listen to people without judging them, if you listen to people without letting your own opinion interfere with what they are saying, then you will truly understand, and only then can you connect with them. So yes, this is a very important skill. There are various aspects to communication. You look at the verbal communication, the non-verbal. We get to Most of us will just focus on what to say. We do not focus on how to say.
Yes.
And I think that is where a lot of us fail, because the focus is so much on the content. and not as much as on the delivery. As I always say, and I've always learned from my teachers, that people will forget what you said, people will forget how you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that comes from the way you deliver your content. So yes, communications is very, very important. You may be very good with technical skills, but if you are not able to pass it on and not able to. So in both the schools that I go at in MIMS, I'm teaching the master's program there, and even the SPGen, I teach the family managed business students. So these are students who already own a family business. So their challenges are very different from the challenges that a typical MBA student would face. So we talk a lot about that. It's very interesting because I learn a lot. That is why I use the term facilitator, and I don't like to say that I'm a professor of communications or I'm a teacher. I always say I'm a facilitator, because all I'm doing is facilitating. I'm just sharing what I have learned, and believe you me, Usha, I learned so much from my students. It's just on the go, and I'm not a PhD in management. I'm a PhD in English language teaching. So all the management things that I've learned from my students. So we discuss, we talk, try to communicate, and learn from each other and listen to each other so that we can learn. Yes. So that's.
Very well said. Very well said. Beautifully explained. Aarti, sorry when I said your doctorate in management, of
No,
course,
no, no,
English.
please don't be. Please don't.
So,
Not.
that is the most important. But my question is,
Mhm.
how come you're so proficient in Hindi? I know that's your mother tongue. So, do you also tell stories in English?
Yes, I do tell stories in English. I'm proficient in Hindi because I grew up in Lucknow. My hometown is Lucknow, and everyone there would speak in Hindi. So I am, but definitely because I've been living in Mumbai for close to 3 decades now. So my Hindi, I tend to think, has become very rusty. My friends in Bombay don't think, they think otherwise. My friends in Lucknow think that yes, I've become very rusty with my Hindi, but I do write in English. As I said, that when I came to Bombay and when I started writing and I went to Cafe Rati, I realized that if I have to tell my stories here, at least the kind of people that I was meeting, I'm not going to generalize. So the kind of people that I was meeting, they were more comfortable with English. So I would write in English, but मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि मैं हिंदी में अपने आप को अच्छे से व्यक्त कर लेती हूँ. I'm able to express myself well in Hindi. So all my characters and everything, somewhere or the other, Hindi would come in. So all the English stories that I write are, I would say, liberally peppered with Hindi. So there will be a few dialogues, not only a few words, there will be a few dialogues in Hindi. And that's how I like to think that I write in English. I don't necessarily, I mean, I don't think I really write in English. I would really struggle. I mean, I'll have to go through all my work to find a story which is like completely in English. It would be difficult for me to find. I write in English, Usha.
बस
Yes.
आप हिंदी में ही बात कीजिए. It's so, it's, how would I say, it is musical to the ear, to listen to this language. It's
हिंदी
something which
बहुत
is,
बहुत ही सुंदर भाषा है. हिंदी बहुत खूबसूरत है. और जब मैं बम्बई में नई नई आई थी, उषा, आपको बताऊं कि मैं हिंदी में बात करने से हिचकती थी, क्योंकि लोगों को लगता है, हमारे देश में सबको ऐसा लगता है कि जो अंग्रेजी में बात नहीं करता है वो इंटेलिजेंट नहीं है ना. सो इंटेलिजेंस इन सम वे इज इक्वेटेड टू योर नॉलेज ऑफ इंग्लिश. और जब मैं अंग्रेजी में बात करती थी, इफ आई वुड स्पीक इन इंग्लिश, दे वुड बी सो अघास कि ओ यू नो हाउ टू स्पीक इंग्लिश एज वेल. तो मैं बोलती थी, क्यों भाई, जो हिंदी बात करता है वो अंग्रेजी नहीं कर सकता. भाषा ही है, मतलब कोई भी भाषा में, चाहे हिंदी हो, चाहे अंग्रेजी हो, मराठी हो, गुजराती हो, स्पेनिश हो, a language is a language, right? We don't need to add any currency to it. As long as we are able to connect, as long as we are able to engage, and as long as we are able to tell people what we want to say, and they are able to get us, it is fine. So yes, I love speaking in Hindi and I love writing in Hindi, but I do realize that English is works well, at least in my city. So I like to do a mix of both. थोड़ा
Yes.
थोड़ा अपने लिए, थोड़ा दूसरों के लिए। उसी तरीके से दुनिया अच्छे से चल सकती है। अगर हम सिर्फ अपनी सोचेंगे तो शायद आगे बढ़ना मुश्किल रहेगा।
Why not? I mean, English is the kind of official work language.
Yes, it is.
Hindi, bilkul Hindi is the Rashtra Bhasha. And why not use the two just to your own advantage, whichever works at that
Yes,
moment.
yes,
So,
yes,
moving on, Aarti, you've been engaged in this wonderful bird project, BIRD, which I don't think is the birds. So, this is about the reading program. So, could you
yes.
talk to us a little bit about this?
Yes, Usha. So this is a project which I'm extremely passionate about, and fortunately associated with this project, it is spearheaded by IIM Ahmedabad and supported by MIT. I had done my PhD. My thesis was on how we should subtitle content, should use subtitle content in schools so that we can improve the reading skills of children. So when we listen to content, we are only using our ears. Or when we read the content, we are only using our eyes. But when we listen and we read, this is called bimodal. We are using our eyes and we are using our ears. So there is extra support for anyone to read. Now, what happens in India is that we belong, fortunately, we are blessed. We belong to the privileged class where we do get to go to a good school, where we have a lot of support at home, where, once we are out of school, we have access to library, we have access to content where we can read and continue to be good readers. Unfortunately, that does not happen for a lot of Indians, and they have no support once they are out of their school or college, and some of them don't even reach college, and some of them don't even reach school. So the whole project is about that if the media content, what is being streamed on television, if that is subtitled in the same language. Subtitling happens, right? Captions are there, but they don't happen in the same language. English is subtitled in English, but Hindi is also subtitled in English only. If we subtitle Hindi in Hindi, Gujarati in Gujarati, Marathi in Marathi, what happens is people do not even realize when they are watching their television or when they are watching any content on any media, the captions are going on and automatically reading happens. So this is a project that we are working very hard on to ensure that all the media content, if not all, at least 50% of the content is subtitled so that there is reading support for the readers in India. And it's an ambitious project called the Billion Readers in India, the Bird Project.
Wonderful. You're doing a wonderful, wonderful job of promoting reading. And this is for all the listeners who are tuning in a bit late. It's Storytellers Cafe with Dr. Aarti Punjabi, who is Mumbai based and is also a faculty at the leading business schools. And she's passionate about the reading campaign, which was set up by Ahmedabad Business School, IIM, and it's called the Bird Project. And definitely go back. If you have tuned in late, you can always go back to the archives and listen to this podcast on YouTube as well as on the Facebook page of Bharat FM. So, moving on, Aarti, I know you're associated with Commune, and who doesn't know Commune? So, could you tell us a bit about it, and then we would like to listen to another story?
Thank you, Usha. Not really associated with commune, but yes, during the pandemic, as I said, we all discovered that we can do some things. So when I started writing, commune came up with a lot of contests. Okay, and I started reading on Insta Live. So there is this Caferati member, Danish Hussain. He would hold Insta Lives on his Instagram, and he invited people to come and tell stories there. So I started reading some of my stories there, and then I came across the commune page, and they were talking about a podcast. And Danish, and there were other people on that Insta live who were very encouraging, and they said that, oh, you are good with your voice. That there was a workshop with mantra, and I joined that workshop. I said, let me give it a try. Why not? Let's just give it a try. So I joined that workshop, and at the end of the workshop, all of us had to submit a 4 or a 5 minute podcast, a story or something, which I did. And I was chosen. I was the winner of that program, of that contest. And that's how I started my podcasting journey, because I got to speak to mantra, and then I got very excited, and I thought, why not? When I'm sitting and writing stories, I'm not really publishing them. I put them out on a blog, but how many people will really come and read my blog? I don't really, telling stories and writing stories is one thing. Ensuring that they reach the right audience is another one, right? And it's a very difficult one, because if you don't find the people, जंगल में मोर नाचा किसने देखा? तो आप जब तक आपकी कहानी किसी तक पहुंचेगी नहीं, किसी तक, तो कितनी भी खूबसूरत कहानियां आप सुना लीजिए, है ना? और फिर मरने के बाद अगर हम प्रेमचंद बन जाए, तो वो तो बन ही सकते हैं कई लोग, लेकिन जब तक जी रहे हैं तो कम से कम कुछ लोग तो जान लें हमें। तो इसी चीज को सोचते हुए मुझे लगा कि चलो आरती, ये भी ट्राई कर लेते हैं जिंदगी में, क्यों छोड़े ये मौका। एंड दैट इज हाउ आई स्टार्टेड माय पॉडकास्ट, एंड आई सेड कि किसी और की कहानी क्यों पढ़े, अपनी पढ़ देते हैं, कोई तो सुन ही लेगा। So even if 2 people listen to my podcast, it's fine. At least 2 people have heard my story. And that is how my podcasting journey started. And I started this in May. So it's exactly a year now. I started this in May, and I uploaded about 7 stories in that season. I plan to start, then I've taken a break, and now I'm going to come back with another set of stories. So in season 1, most of them are taken, they are my memoirs. So I have written about, as I shared, Meri Maa Ki Almari is one of them. And then there are other personal stories which I have put, but the podcast is in Hindi. It is called Kahani Hamari Tumhari. And do go and give it a listen if you like my stories. And even if you don't like them, it's fine. Just listen to it and share your feedback with me. I'll be very happy.
Absolutely. Why not? Aarti, we'll share your podcast links and details, and the listeners and the viewers, I'm sure it would be a pleasure to go and click and listen to more of your personal memoirs.
Thank you.
Aarti, do you think we can listen to a story in English from you?
Yes, please. So I'm going to read a story which I have written in English. It's in 2 small parts. I think I will need to wear my glasses for this.
Sure.
This one is called Chanda and Tara. ए चंदा, चाय पियोगी? जी बीबी जी. Chanda's muffled reply came from the courtyard. She was sweeping the veranda with firm, energetic strokes. The dried leaves, twigs, little pebbles, all remnants of the Andhi last night were scattered over the courtyard. Her thin frame almost swayed with each movement. She kept her jhadu on one side and walked to the steps leading to the corridor. The mehri came with some water in a steel jar. Ari, udhar ja, she said sternly. Chanda adjusted her faded cotton dupatta tied across her waist and smiled. Are marti kyun hai? Dal pani. Mehri dropped the water hurriedly as Chanda washed her hands vigorously. A thin stream of brownish water trickled down her hands. Get some more water, na, Chanda grumbled. The mehri snorted and walked off. Mrs. Vara called out, Annu? Are oh Annu? Kursi dal de aangan mein. Kyun re Chanda? Chai pee? No, Bibi ji. Misri has not given me yet. What to say about this Misri, I tell you, Chanda? Only I get these haram khors in my life. Koi dhang ka kaam na kare hain. Come, you come and sit here. Tell me about your daughter. How old is she? 16? Why don't you bring her? She should be helping you now. You're getting old. Mrs. Verma said as she sat with a thumb in her aram kursi. Chanda sat on her haunches a little away from Mrs. Verma. क्या कहूँ बीबी जी, जवान लड़की है. She's too pretty for her own good. That Panwala at the corner, one harami he is, I'm telling you. And that Prakash who works for that Jamshed Babu. Mrs. Verma poked. Jamshed? Oh, you mean Sillu's son? How is he? I haven't seen him since years. I tell you, I always liked him. Very simple boy, no? His brothers are the wicked ones. That Jeru and that skinny one, what's his name? Manik, na? They have too much property, I tell you, Chanda. Once half of this city belonged to Jamshed's grandfather. But the sons did not keep it together and now they barely have any money left. Jeru and Manik are very sly, I'm telling you. I have heard that they are trying to oust that poor Jamshed and he has only 2 houses left in his share now. क्या ज़माना है भाई. Poor Seedha fellows are taken for a ride by their own family. Mrs. Verma went on with her rant. Chanda nodded in agreement. हाँ बीबी जी, Jamshed Babu is really simple and nice. You know, he gives me tea every day. Sometimes he gives me bread also. बीबी जी, मालूम है, he keeps the bread in his Godrej almirah, cackled Chanda. Even biscuits and some nuts he puts in the almirah. Mrs. Verma smirked. पारसी है ना, थोड़ा सा. Just because he gives you tea, you say he is nice? What do you know about him? I tell you, Chanda, you are too Sidha. One tea he gives you and you are floored. The world is very cruel, very manipulative, I'm telling you. I bet he makes you broom his angan every day. And here I give you tea every day. And didn't I just give you some puris to eat yesterday? But you will never say that Verma BBG is very good. Nah, never say that. Arey nahi BBG, Chanda said. You ask the Panwala or the Sen BBG. I always tell them you are very kind. You let me sit near you. You give me tea. Once you even gave me money to get those red bangles. Chanda waved her arm. अरे रहने दे, मेरा तो दिल ही ऐसा है, replied her BBG. Chanda smiled. Tell me more about your Chandini, na? Said Mrs. Verma. She is not Chandni BBG. Her name is Tara. अरे ठीक है, तारा चांदनी एक ही बात ना. Chanda smiled. She is very nice. She helps me with all the chores. I'm now looking out for a boy. I asked the Mehri, I asked Annu also if they know any suitable boys. BBG, you know my Tara is so pretty, so fair. You know her choti is so thick. She's slim and BBG, she can read a little bit of Hindi also. And everyone in my community says that she sings like a nightingale. BBG, they say that she's a heroine. Mrs. Verma smiled. Pugly, all of us find our children beautiful. And from where can I find a boy for her? All my staff is of higher caste than you, na? Chanda's face fell. That's true, BBG. Can you not ask Sahib if he knows anyone in the office? ठीक है Chanda, Mrs. Verma said brusquely. Misri, इसे चाय दे. Mrs. Verma moved her heavy body and walked back to her room. Chanda sighed. What to do if God had only given up on her? He was the one who made her a jamadar, no? Then why blame other people? After all, he only made them other people. Part 2. Mrs. Verma called out, Tara? Oh Tara, chai piyogi? Ji bibi ji, chimed Tara as she quickly finished brooming the angan. She stood dutifully as Mehri poured water from the tumbler for her to wash her hands. She then sat on her haunches in one corner of the angan. Misri walked up with a chipped old brown mug and placed it next to her. Ye le, pee le. Tara waited respectfully till Misri walked back. She then grabbed the mug and wrapped her palms around the cup and slurped hungrily as the hot sweet tea slid down her throat. The aroma of tea filled her with pleasure. Mrs. Verma walked towards her and placed next to her a few broken pieces of biscuits on a paper. Khale! Tara looked at her with gratitude. The soggy, moist biscuits turned soft and mushy with just a tiny dip in the hot tea. Amma kaisi hai teri? Asked Mrs. Verma. ठीक, डॉक्टर बोले हैं कुछ दिन लगेंगे. Grunted Mrs. Verma. Be careful. Cover your chest well. Open the dupatta and wear when you go out, okay? That Prakash who works for that Jamshed, no, is a rogue. You have to take care of yourself. नहीं तो नोच लेंगे ये गिद्ध. Tara felt a warm blush rising up her neck and rapidly proceeding to her cheeks. She looked down and nodded. She finished her tea and rushed out. There were too many jobs to be done before noon. Are Annu, find out where this girl has disappeared. She's not turned up today also. 4 days in a row, who does that? Mrs. Verma muttered. BBG, who do I go and ask? Annu asked helplessly. Are, go to the panwala, go to that Jamshed's house, ask that Prakash, has she not been going to their house also? I tell you, these people are rascals. They are capable of anything. You give them tea, you give them biscuit, you give them money for bangles, but they will still not turn up for work. They will just not tell you. BBG, I have checked last evening. I went to Jamshed's house. His house was locked. And I went to the panwala. He does not know. I have a feeling that something is not right. You keep your feelings to yourself. Go and see the panwala again. He knows Tara. BBG, I had asked him the other day and he had said he isn't seen and now he's also not there. And I don't like to talk to other Jamadars. So how will I know where she is and why she's not coming? Mumbled Mrs. Verma as she sat on a aram kursi, sipping her sweet tea. Then she heard the tinkling of a payal. Kaun hai? Main hu Bibi ji, called out Chanda. She walked in dressed in a clean, bright pink salwar kurta with a dupatta draped around her head. Are Marie, kahan thi tu? Tara kahan hai? Chanda's red bangles tinkled as she walked towards Mrs. Verma with a small box of sweets in her hand. She kept it next to Mrs. Verma and smiled widely. Bibi ji, muh meetha kar lo. Tara got married. Sorry, I could not invite anyone. It was a very rushed affair. You see, my son-in-law eloped with Tara. They got married in the court and came home to tell us. I was so happy, but you see, our community will not accept the shadi. Dusri jaat ka hai na. It took me 3 days to convince the elders of the community. Yesterday, we got them married according to our rituals, and I also did a khana. I've got these laddus for you, BBG. Please bless her. Mrs. Verma looked disdainfully at the cheap red cardboard box full of laddus. Annu, ye utha le to yahan se. Annu came and reluctantly picked the box and kept it on the stool outside the kitchen. Mrs. Verma removed a small pouch from her blouse and pulled out 100-rupee note and kept it on the floor. Rakh le, shadi ka neg. Give it to Tara. Chanda folded her palms and bowed respectfully. Bhagwan aapko lambi umar de, Bibi ji. And she grabbed the note before it could fly away with the wind. Tara is waiting outside only. She wants your blessing, but she's feeling very shy. Should I call her? Arey हाँ तो call her. Let me see how she looks like a bride. Tara, oh Tara, Chanda called out excitedly. अन्नो, मिस्री को बोल चाय ले आए दोनों के लिए, called out Mrs. Verma. Tara walked in, wearing a brightly embroidered red salwar kurta, a dupatta draped neatly across her chest. Bright red sindoor in her hair, a big round bindi, big golden hoops in her ears that twinkled as the rays of the sun fell on her smiling face. Namaste, baby ji, she smiled. क्यों री? चाय पिएगी? दूल्हा कैसा है? क्या नाम है? Questions stumbled out of Mrs. Verma's mouth. Tara felt the familiar rush of hot flush rising up her neck to her cheeks. She walked up and sat on the chair lying next to Mrs. Verma's Aram kursi and whispered, Jamshed. Thank you. That was Chanda or Tara.
Fabulous, fabulous. I'm still taking in the story, and what a twist to the tale. Jamshed. Beautiful, Aarti. What a fabulous story. I was just listening to each and every word that was coming out of your mouth, the expressions, the tonal quality. Oh, fabulous. Thank you for that,
Thank you, Usha.
sharing
Thank
that
you.
story. It's
Thank
such a
you.
pleasure and such a privilege for me to unearth and showcase such wonderful storytellers, you know,
Thank you.
and
Thank
it's
you,
always
Usha.
a pleasure to listen to stories. Like you say, listening is an art, and beautiful. I'm still enjoying the aftermath. Thank you for this lovely story, Aarti. We wish you all the best. And if you have any parting words, because I would like us to stay with the story of the lovely Tara, the Jamadar, Mrs. Verma, you know, Misri. It's such a lovely visually you painted a picture of this Angan and sweeping the Angan. Beautiful, lovely, lovely. Thank you. Such
Thank
memories,
you.
such wonderful,
Thank you,
vivid
Usha.
memories. What
Thank
would
you,
you
Usha.
like to leave the Storytellers Cafe with for all the budding storytellers, story writers, authors, whoever is listening, because like you said, everybody has this innate skill in them to tell a story. It's just you need to hone it and start speaking. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. First of all, thank you, Usha, for having me. Thank you, Storytellers Cafe, for inviting me. It's such a privilege to be here. And as I said earlier, that Jangal mein mor nacha kisne dekha. So, for people who create content, for people who love writing and telling stories, it's such a pleasure to find audience. It's such a privilege to be on a platform where you can reach out to so many people. So thank you very much, first of all, for that. Thank you, my dear friend Aarti, for introducing me to Usha and to Storytellers Cafe. So thank you very much for that. I do hope you enjoyed the story. What can I say? I'm no expert at this. All I can say is that please do what your heart says. So if your heart says write stories, just write. Uh, you will find people, there will be people who will listen. All of us are storytellers, all of us have a story. We tell stories every day, we just don't realize. So just start by doing that. Even in fact, Usha wanted to mention that even at work now, like, I've developed a module and we are working on how storytelling at your workplace and in your business can take your business ahead, because stories are the way in which you connect, and business or work is all about connections. People will work with you not because your work is great. People will work with you because they like you, because they connect with you. People like you because they connect with you. So tell stories at work, tell stories otherwise, write stories, listen to good stories. I also wanted to mention, Usha, that Clubhouse is an audio platform, and I'm extremely active. And again, this is something I discovered during the pandemic. So I read stories on Clubhouse, not necessarily mine. I pick up all the popular writers, and I just read their stories. And I realize that and as I said, that magical and healing power of stories, it heals me. And magical because it's only through stories that I've connected with such beautiful people from all over the world. See, we connected, right, Usha? And how did we connect? Stories. If
Absolutely,
the stories were not
absolutely.
there, Usha and Aarti would have probably not met or known each other. So
Yes.
go out and tell stories. Tell, even if you're just narrating stories of other people, even if you're just reading out from the scriptures, even if you're just reading out from your children's textbook, just read, just share the joy of reading. When you read to yourself, it fills you up. When you read it out to others, it fills them up. So let us fill our cups and our own cups, and help other people fill their own cups by listening to stories and by telling more stories. That is all I would say. Yes.
Thank you. I think you said it all because this is what is go tell your story, listen to stories, and share your story. So, with that thought in mind, friends, I want to tell you that June is the Pride Month, and our next segment will be advocating the LGBTQ community, and we have a wonderful guest. And Storytellers Cafe is very happy to be in some way contributing towards the Pride Month. So I'll see you next week, same time, same place. And this is our anniversary special. It's special. So don't forget to listen to Aarti. In fact, since it's an audio visual podcast, there are actually many people listening to this segment on audio, because it is, after all, a radio. So they have the app and they listen to the audio um,
Mhm.
uh, segment of this session as well,
All
those who
right.
want to see. So please go ahead, share the link, and you can reach out to Aarti Punjabi. Her coordinates are all there in our page. And feel free to drop in your comments because we love to hear from you, what your thoughts are. And I enjoyed both the stories. Aarti, I'll definitely see more of you. Be in touch because
Thank
it's a great pleasure to come across wonderful storytellers. And definitely, I would like to listen to more stories from you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Usha. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. And thank you, everyone who has tuned in and who will be tuning in later on and listen to this podcast or look it up on YouTube. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. Thank you. Much, much appreciated. And feedback is very important for everyone and for every content creator. I don't claim to be a content creator. I would just say I would be very happy to receive feedback. If you have, whether they are bouquets or brickbats, keep them coming, because at least I know that you heard me. So that itself is a big thing, right? So if you have heard me, I'm very happy. But I will be very happy if you would write to me, or if you would share your comments, or if you would tell me what kind of stories you want to listen, because I do read out other people's stories as well. And I'll be happy to do so because it brings me a lot of pleasure. So thank you so much. Thank you very much for listening in. Thank you.
Thank you, Aarti. So
Thank you.
that's a good night and a goodbye and a good day from Storytellers Cafe. I'm your host, Usha Venkatraman, signing off. And we'll see you next time, next week, same place, same time. Tune in. Thank you.